Welcome. You're listening to the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, a podcast production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. And welcome back. My name is David Russ with the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County. And in the studio with me is Dr. Yvonne Glass with Ashland University. She is the executive dean of the seminary. This is Ashland Theological Seminary, if you don't know, folks. And she's also associate professor of counseling. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr.
I'm
Glass.
excited to be here.
Yeah, let me read this bio because I don't want to assume everybody knows who you are, although you should. Dr. Glass holds her doctorate from Kent State University in counselor education and supervision. She brings to the position over 15 years of clinical experience in various settings, including working within a school system, private practice, professional advocacy. Her passions include facilitating the incorporation of faith into the counseling experience. And audience, you know that really gets me going. Her studies examine how religiosity positively impacts the daily stressors of life through various workshops for clergy, lay persons, paraprofessionals, professionals. She has been a voice for the practice of effective clinical mental health counseling. Welcome to the program, Dr. Glass. And you are, in addition to your PhD, you're an LPCCS, which for audience, if you don't know, that is also my degree, licensed professional clinical counselors with that supervision endorsement. We are way better than our social work brethren because we focus on counseling, yes. Dr. Glass. We don't get sidetracked by all these other issues, these extraneous. We focus on the counseling art. But
yes, you do.
I appreciate. And how long have you been at the seminary, either as the dean or just been over there?
So I've been there since April 30th, 2018.
It was 2008. Okay.
Yep, that's when I started. That was in the counseling program. I was the director of the counseling program and an assistant professor. I became interim dean in June of 2023 and then officially executive dean in January of 2024.
Wow, so that's just a little over a year.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'm a newbie. And
all right.
I used to say I'm the new kid, and eventually I have to stop saying that. So
use that as long as you can, though. That's good. When we first met, we were talking before the program began just a little bit about going through the counselor accreditation for counseling and related educational programs, KCREP, which KCREP. It's an important designation, counselors. Don't go to a program that's not KCREP approved. You will regret it if you do.
Yes, you will.
And Dr. Glass took that on when she first came and got through that successfully, of course. But not all counseling programs are created equal, so some are better than others. And again, I'm so excited about the counseling program in the seminary because I know a lot of our workforce that is working in the Ashland County area, whether it's Appleseed Catholic Charities or Arcata. They have had either full-on graduates or just have had some touch with the seminary. So thank you for all you're doing. And you guys still see folks too, and I don't know if the community always knows. Can you talk a little bit about just that part? Because I didn't want to forget about that. I mean, if folks need counseling services, how would they approach? Is it Smetzer?
Yep. So Smetzer Counseling Center, we have a full-time counselor who is licensed. He's an LPC, supervised by one of our faculty members. And then we have interns. Sometimes it's just 2, and then I think this spring and summer we'll have 4.
Right.
So it rotates based on the cohort and how many people want to stay within Ashland in order to do their internship.
Yeah.
Sometimes we lose them to you all. We lose our students and they come and they're interns for you, which isn't a loss, right? Yeah. It's all about connecting to the community and being of service. Those our full-time counselor and the interns, they're all supervised by licensed counselors, and so they service everyone.
They're working, they're getting their hours, and in some ways, I used to tell people, I encourage them to go to see the interns because you're really getting more than one counselor.
You get
actually
2 for 1. You get a 2 for.
It's a good idea to do that, and that's great. And do you guys do the recording or the two-way mirrors? Do you guys do that stuff?
We do. We have the two-way mirrors, and sessions are recorded, which means that you don't just get a twofer, but you get the licensed counselor watching and making sure that you're getting the best care possible as you're allowing somebody to help them learn. Just like when we go to the doctor's office and we have they have interns. I know when I was having our kids, there was like, are you okay if a student stops in? It's the same thing.
Right, exactly.
So you get to pay for it a little bit.
Yeah, you see the students round with the doctors in medical settings all the time. So it's the same thing, audience. But let me tell you, I wasn't planning on saying this, but you triggered some trauma. When I was going through the program up in Akron, Dr. Glass, when I sat down with my supervisors there and I had to watch myself and, when everything you said got dissected, after the fact, when I was getting critiqued and evaluated so that I could be better, that's until you get used to that. But audience, you should know this, all counselors and social workers, we go through something very similar where the only really way to learn some of this is to have more experienced folks, look at your performance, if you will, and kind of say, hey, why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? Did you consider this? Yeah. And it's a weird thing to go through, but good. Yeah. I mean, that's the best way really to learn.
It is. And I think sometimes people don't appreciate when you are recorded. Like I did, part of my practicum was recorded, but then when I did my internship, it wasn't. Oh, okay. And so you don't realize, like, we have mannerisms that we do. Yes. And so I think it makes you a stronger counselor because you're aware. You can see.
We call them nonverbals, and we don't realize some of the nonverbals we have, or if we're getting stressed and like, what are you doing with your hand? Yeah. What are you doing with your hair? Yep. Why are you tugging on your ear? So
you held your breath there. Are you sure you didn't think the client noticed that? So
clients notice everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we talk a lot about on the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, just about mental health, substance use issues. From your seat, obviously, I know sounds like a easy question, but mental health we think is a vital part of flourishing and surviving. It's one of those dimensions. We got a conference coming up where we're focused on all these different dimensions of wellness. Nice. But from your perspective, why is mental health or emotional health such a vital component to overall thriving or health in general?
I think one of the things that we underestimate is that when we are not mentally healthy, that it impacts our work.
Yeah.
So it impacts whether or not you can be productive as a member of society. We all know that if one of our coworkers is having a hard day, that it impacts us if we are attend to that, but it also impacts their ability to get the work done.
Yeah.
And then it impacts our families. It impacts all of your relationships. And there's also really solid research that poor mental health negatively impacts you physically.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, if I'm depressed, then I'm hunched over and then I squish all my insides. Or if I'm anxious, my insides are in knots. Like when our clients describe that we are all like, oh, that's real abstract, but there's a concreteness that is happening there. And so it's really, I am excited that we are fully starting to understand just how significant mental health is.
You are absolutely right, Dr. Glass, because that for years, we did not make that connection between primary and mental emotional health. And there is much more awareness of how those things go together. And you really can't be healthy unless we're attending to all those things. So, and again, I didn't know exactly with your new role as executive dean, do you still have much contact with the students? Because I know you're good at that and they love talking with you. Do you still have an opportunity to do that?
Oh, thank you. Not as much as I used to. Okay. I do miss that. But I try to, with each new group of students, I try to visit each semester. I try to visit a couple of classes and just say hello. I freaked out a couple of our profs because I forgot to warn them I was coming. And they're like, Yvonne. And I'm like, I know technically I'm the dean, but I really just wanted to come say hi. Isn't that okay? And we have luncheons and we have chapel. And so I try to interact with the students that way. I got to step in and just come and say hi to the counseling students in one of the cohorts. I'm like, I just want to come and say hi and talk to you all. And so you get to know who I am because I miss interacting with you every week.
Yeah,
so.
No, that was one of my first impressions when Steve and I first visited all those years ago. I said, wow, she's such a good communicator. And I just know that as she has these interpersonal, interactions on the campus, whether it's with the students or staff or faculty, that was going to be good for you because you're a very good communicator. And I think people feel heard. They feel like they can talk to you about what's going on. And again, that's because she's a counselor, ladies and gentlemen, and she was trained to do that very well.
Yes.
But one of the things that is unique about seminaries, and particularly Ashland Theological, is that it's all about working collaboratively with communities. And I talked a little bit about this with Dr. Sumter in another episode, but there's a real relationship between how churches, counselors, community organizations can all work together. Now, I don't know if you're doing more of that, but this idea, how can churches, counseling programs, counselors, and then community organizations work together, I think, effectively, because not all of our folks that would graduate from the theological seminary are going to stay in the religious context. I mean, we know firsthand that a lot of those folks end up working in maybe a secular community base. So how do you kind of develop those working relationships between the churches, the communities, the seminary, and some of the other? We have a lot of churches in Ashland County.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of them. One of the ways is realizing that our counselors are doing ministry, that it's one of the reasons our students choose Ashland. Like you can go to Akron or you can go to Kent. Yeah. You can do a program online, but they choose Ashland because they want to have their Christian worldview integrated. They feel the calling to be a part of what God is doing just as much as somebody that's teaching or someone that's doing medicine, but also just as much as the pastor, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we help all of our students realize that we're all doing ministry, that it is all a calling. So we connect with our churches by saying things like, yes, we're training your church leadership in theology and in the scriptures. And then how are you also dealing with the hands and feet part of what your ministry needs to do? And so we have our counselors. This fall, we're starting a new program. It's called Pastoral Care Studies. It's essentially pastoral counseling. So for those that want to engage that aspect of the human being, the whole person, but don't want to do the clinical aspect of it. They can come and they can get a 37-hour degree. It'll take them 2 years. Wow. And they'll be equipped to do that. It's for pastors. It's for church leaders. Oh. I would encourage churches to have both. Yep. I think it would be good if you could have both a pastoral counselor and a clinical counselor, but a clinical counselor who shares your worldview on site to help your congregation thrive. You will do what we are supposed to do. Come into the church. It's a training ground. We're going to get what we need, and then we can go out into the world and we can be the disciples that God calls us to be.
No, this is you're speaking my language. I was just I was ranting with Dr. Sumter on the other podcast episode about one of my biggest concerns historically. It started in the late 70s, early 80s, was the secular counseling, psychology, psychiatry profession saying to churches, hey, you really shouldn't hold on to your folks and do the counseling, or what you guys call counseling. You really need to refer to us because what your folks are dealing with are medical issues. They need professional medical help with this biological model, often involving medications. And you really are doing them a disservice. And I never bought into that. I think the research says that many of the issues should be solved with the pastoral staff in-house whenever possible. I'm a member over at Oaks, which is a little church in Worcester, but I've often said, why would we refer out our folks for things that we are best equipped to deal with? I love that. I didn't know about the pastoral counseling. I love that concept, Dr. Glass, that our churches, I hope they take. We've got some very influential pastors in the community. So I think once the Ministerial Association and other folks get on board with this, that's helpful, because I am trying to, and this might sound weird, audience, but I've said this before, so you won't be alarmed. But my role at the Mental Health and Recovery Board, along with my board's support, is to make sure our system, our secular community behavioral health system, is right-sized. And what I mean by that is, if our faith communities are stronger, I think our system should actually be smaller.
Right.
And that's okay, because I think the more natural way that human beings have received care and support and assistance has been the churches for thousands of years.
Right.
People don't know the counseling social work field, if you will, is somewhat an artifice, a construct that's relatively recent. And so anything that you're doing, Dr. Glass, to help equip or re-equip our churches and pastoral side or the clinical side, I think that's wonderful, and I support it wholeheartedly. I'm very encouraged to hear that, and knowing that we have so many churches. And I'll tell you, we've been working on this at the board for many, many years, kind of encouraging more natural supports. And churches are a big part of that. The faith community is a big part of that. I think they're going to take you up on this. I'll be interested to see how hopefully that program grows over time. So pastoral counseling, 30, how many hours?
37 hours.
37 hours, which could be achieved in a couple years.
2 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, 2
That's
years,
awesome.
2 classes at a time.
Yeah. Again, from your experience, and again, if you want to touch on it at all, because I know we talked a little off air, this is not just a job for you. You are involved with your church and your husband, who's a pastor, and the ministries up in the Akron area. So faith plays a huge role. So you tell me from your perspective, how do you see faith helping people navigate stress, grief, all the life transitions, which are a lot of young people at the campus, and even some of the folks that are coming in seminary probably going through some transitional. So how do you view faith and how that plays a role?
So I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So in my doctoral work, my dissertation was about the whole idea, the whole concept came from me having the belief and then finding the research to support it that says we go through stuff, and the way that we manage that is our faith. It is how close are you to God? It is how much are you integrating? It's not so there's 2 types of religiosity, extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic is how much do you attend church? How much do you attend small group? The research clearly shows that it doesn't matter how much you're going to church. We all know that though, right?
Yeah.
We know that I can go to church every Sunday and multiple times throughout the week and still be incredibly depressed or addicted to something. But intrinsic is how much are you praying? How much are you incorporating the scriptures into your life? How much are you engaging in practices of the spiritual disciplines and meditating, those kinds of things?
Yeah.
That mitigates the life stressors.
Right.
But that's what the scriptures tell us, that in this life you will have trouble, but fear not, because I have overcome the world.
Yeah.
Lean not on your own understanding. Be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah.
And so if we are really believing the scriptures, and they're not just platitudes, but they are hallmarks of who we are as our being, then we can navigate through those challenges. I was, because I was at Kent, there was a big emphasis on separation of church and state. And there were faculty members that would try to challenge that, like, how are you going to do that, Yvonne? And I had classmates like, well, what would you do with this person? And I'm like, well, the scriptures call me to love first. And so if I'm loving, then I feel like we can figure the rest out. That might be really naive. That might be a very childlike understanding of what it is that Jesus is calling us to do. But when I would talk to them that way, they were like, oh, I really believe the scriptures. They're not just mere words to me. They are the very life, the very word of our Lord and Savior. And so as I move through life, as I talk to students, no matter if you're on the theology side or in the counseling side, to me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to interact with you. I'm going to love on you. I'm going to speak life into you, just like somebody did for me.
Yeah.
I grew up in a time where I went to public school, but when I grew up and going to public school, teachers weren't afraid or ashamed of sharing the gospel with you. Yeah. And so I was surrounded by teachers that attended their local churches and went to Bible study, and then they would bring that into the classroom, and they weren't reprimanded for that. Yeah. My children are being raised in a time where teachers don't do that. Yeah. And there's this fear that if I do that, then I'm going to lose my job and all that insecurity. And so I am a firm believer that if we equip the church to be the church, then they can go out and they can do just that. Yeah. And so part of the reason for the pastoral care studies degree, in addition to our clinical counseling, and why I think churches need both, is that there is this secular mindset that is growing that says, oh, you don't need that Jesus stuff in order to deal with your depression or your schizophrenia or your anxiety. I think you need that Jesus stuff all the more if you're dealing with depression and anxiety
100%.
and schizophrenia.
Yep.
And so it's not just lip service for me. Like, this is my life. This is how I go about. This is when I'm interacting with people. If I'm coming to talk to you about mental health, or I'm coming to talk to you about the seminary, or I'm coming to talk to you about me, I'm hoping that I'm fully integrated and I'm fully congruent, and that you'll get the same thing everywhere in all those different places. And that's how we need to do that elsewhere too.
That's awesome. That is awesome. You said public school. So did you go to the Akron system? Or
all over. So I started off in Midview, in the Elyria, Lorraine area.
Okay.
Then I was in Westlake City Schools up on the lake, and then finally finished out in Buckeye Local, which is just outside of Medina.
All right. Yeah, because I was grew up in Akron, so I went to Kenmore.
Oh, it's not there anymore.
I know. Can you believe that? I was very disappointed. I was going to go get a brick or something, but I'm like, what are they doing in my high school?
Yeah. And then they combined them, and I'm like, you do know those are rival schools, right?
But I know. They didn't care.
They didn't care.
Like, come on. Yeah, no, that was an interesting school because they didn't believe in Windows. That was one of those high schools that had the only windows were like for the administrative staff. And even as a teenager, I said, hey, this doesn't seem right. There should be more windows for us kids.
My high school was like that. They told us it was when they built the building, that was how they were going to conserve energy. And I'm like, they thought about like natural light.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is one of my questions. In your experience as both a counselor and seminary leader, what gives you the most hope about the future of mental health in the church? And I wanted to ask you this, and you started to answer it, but are you hopeful about the future of mental health and how the church can maybe take that on?
Am I hopeful? I'm always hopeful.
Yeah.
There are things, though, that I'm starting to see that make me nervous.
Okay.
And that it used to be that it was the secular side that talked a lot about separation of church and state. Now I'm seeing churches do that. And there's some rejection of those of us like you and I that are strong believers that also have clinical degrees. And so that part makes me nervous, only because I feel like it's a visceral reaction to what was happening on the other side, and the pendulum has swung, and I would like to see it move back into the middle.
Sure.
But there are churches that are still very much embracing counselors, social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, because there are Christian associations. So there are people that are in those fields that are still very much followers of Christ, and they practice from that that foundation. I also I'm starting to, and part of the concern is there's this there's a growing sense of people are like, well, I need just biblical counseling. And I'm like, well, can you explain what that is?
Yeah.
And how is it that what I'm doing isn't, because it sounds like what you're saying, that what I do is not biblical.
Right.
And
no, there are several models out there. Yeah. Is there any use of any of the secular philosophies or approaches, or is it purely what some people call a Bible-based approach, or is it some version of that? So I've heard that debate. I haven't done an episode on that. That might be a fun one to do.
That would be a fun one to do.
Yeah, because you're right. There's some really strong feelings about that, and but you're right. I had early on when I made the decision to go into the counseling program at Akron, I had to defend myself to a lot of folks in the church and family, and they couldn't quite see. I used your love line, a version of it. I wasn't as eloquent as you because I was just a teenager, but I tried to explain to them why I felt like, we're called as Christians into every profession. There's not professions that we should not be in. And again, now I'm a bureaucrat, and Daniel's a hero of mine, right?
Yes.
Joseph. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys worked in the most secular settings
Exactly,
imaginable.
yes.
So if they can do it,
Yeah, we
Dr.
can do
Glass,
it. Yeah.
certainly I
Yes.
can work in community behavioral health at a board. So,
Yeah, yeah.
But in fairness, my board is wonderful. They're very supportive, and they understand. I think what's critical is we understand human beings have all these different dimensions. It's not just this one. And they understand, too, that some of the promises of psychiatry and pharma, they've clearly not played out.
Right.
Some of the theories around the very reductionistic and simplistic theories of chemical imbalances, these things they never played out. They never were. So, and as I've said to folks, taking a pill does not help the relationship skills between you and your husband or your wife.
Exactly.
Right. For my veterans and law enforcement, taking these psychiatric drugs do not help you deal with what you saw, what you experienced, all those things.
Yeah.
It's far more complex than
I wish
that.
it were that simple, right?
Right?
I'm like, put me out of business.
Yeah.
Put me out of business. But it's not that simple.
No, it's not.
It's not.
And I'm curious before we get close to wrapping up, the students coming into the seminary, are they younger? Middle age? I mean, are the folks is there like a track cohorts that are younger folks coming up, or do you have folks returning? Like maybe they've been out doing other things. I mean, do you have a mix? I was
We
just
have
curious.
a solid mix.
Okay.
And it's so funny when somebody's over, like it's usually those in the 40 to 50 range when they come or they're applying. They're like, am I going to be there with a bunch of young kids? I'm like, actually, you're probably the most common age. We've had students that are straight out of undergrad. So they're 21, 22. But we've also had students that are well into their 60s. And one of my favorites, I won't say his name, but if he listens, he'll know who I'm talking about. He started in our program when he was like 74.
Wow.
And so I'm like, sir, but he came because in his second, or what is it? It's his fourth quarter, he was working with underprivileged youth.
Yeah.
And he's like, they have so much need and I want to make sure that I'm helping them well. Yeah. And he came to our program and we helped equip him with the skills that he needed so that he could be effective with them. And so the range is big, which I think adds to the richness of what it is that we're doing. I was one of those kids that was straight out of undergrad and went into my program. And I remember having classmates that were more mature than I was, and they would say, oh, you're too young, you don't have enough life. And I'm like, well, I think it might actually work in my favor because I don't have as much life. But then those that do have more, but I learned so much from them.
I did too.
I would hope that they learned a little bit from me as well. Yeah. And it's such a good mix. And I see that happening with our cohorts, the age range benefits.
I love that mix. Yeah. Because like you, I was, as a young person who went straight from, high school to undergrad to graduate, I didn't have all the life experience and I was intimidated by some of the older folks that were coming back. But yes, I think like you, there might've been a little bit of that tension early on, but we both, I think, benefited from each other. And in audience, that's important to know that, your seminary program over there, you're going to have these cohort mixes, and that is really a strength of the program.
It is, yeah.
A feature, if you will, not a bug.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, and again, speaking with Dr. Yvonne Glass, Executive Dean of the Ashland Theological Seminary, also Associate Professor of Counseling. I'll have all the contact information. I'll just put that in the episode description. But maybe before we leave, if churches could do just one thing differently to better support people who are struggling emotionally, because we know they are, what would you advise maybe our churches, just one thing they can start to do to help folks? Because I know folks are struggling emotionally. They should know that too. But what can they do? Because they might say, oh, I'm not trained or I'm not whatever. Any advice for our churches?
I have a couple, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
The first thing that I would do is recommend that you sit down and talk to like one of our faculty or one of our alum to learn about what it is that we do and how it can be beneficial to you and your congregation. The other thing, which I think would be most beneficial, is if you sent somebody to one of our programs. We have a few of our students that their churches sent them to get their degree, and then they agree to go back and work with their churches for like 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Some of those are fully scholarshiped by those congregations, but some are what we a lot of churches don't realize is we have what's called a church match.
Yeah.
And so if you as a congregation each semester can give up to $1,000, we will match that with our own scholarship dollars. And so that's $2,000 each semester for you to send somebody through our program that will eventually go back and serve your church. And I think what can be short-sighted is that we think, oh, well, I have to wait till they graduate. When I was the director of the program, I used to tell the students at orientation, I haven't done my job if you are the same at the end of this program as you were when I first met you. But one of the things that I think our students often underestimate is they're different after one semester. Now, by the end of the 2.5 years, if you do the clinical program, they're very, very different. There's so much that they've learned. But in that first semester with those few classes, their minds have been blown in a way that changes how they interact with the people that they are in relationship with.
Yeah.
And it can change the course of your congregation.
Absolutely. Those are two wonderful suggestions. I hope the audience takes you up on that. I know they will. I'm very excited about this pastoral counseling program as we can build that capacity. Audience, so much of the healing and the help really needs to happen in our faith communities. I'll continue to say that for as long as I'm allowed. But Dr. Glass, thank you for being on the program, but living out your faith, right? So intrinsically, just being consistent and doing what the Bible tells us to do, to live out that faith. So in such a way that it transforms yourself, but other folks notice and you change others and touch so many lives. You probably, after you've been at a place like Ashland for a period of time, you probably lose count. There's no way to know all the lives you touch, all the way you influence folks. But I hope you think about that and all the positive good that you're doing directly or indirectly for just living out your faith.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I hope the Lord is pleased.
I think so. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Glass. And I will see you, I'm hoping, soon.
Yes, I hope so soon.
Bye now. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast. The podcast is a production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. You can reach the board by calling 419-281-3139. Please remember that the board funds a local 24/7 crisis line through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. It can be reached by calling 419-289-6111. That's 419-289-6111. Until next time, please join us in Keeping Ashland Healthy.